I'm Neha Nihana, working in the cybersecurity BU at MBUZZ, and my colleague Revathy is going to be joining with us a little later for the second half. Between us, we have got a lot to get through today, but I promise we'll keep it moving and make it worth your while. So, all right. So, before we dive into anything, I would like to start with just one question, and I genuinely want you to think about it. Don't just let it wash over you. So, when did you last feel completely sure, like actually confident that if something went wrong with your data right now, you would back up and running in minutes, not in hours or not in days, but in minutes? Yeah. So if you had to think about it, even for a second, you're in the exactly like in the right place today. So let's figure it out together. Yeah. So today's session is called Prepare Before It's Too Late. And what we are going to do is walk you through data backup and disaster recovery in a way that's more practical and actually useful, and a quick overview on how important your data is, and also discuss the myths that we all talk about, right? So let's get into it. Okay, so I want to kick off a real scenario, or I would better say it as a real attack that happened in June 2017. So this was one of the biggest companies in its industry, operating across 130 countries. Like in a normal Tuesday afternoon, everything was completely normal. So one by one, the screen across their headquarters starts going black. Within few hours, their entire operations globally just stops. Their booking system goes down. Cargoes, which means tens of thousands of containers sitting at ports around the world, no one knows where anything is or where it's supposed to go. So about 76 terminals are completely frozen. So their entire IT team was jumped in immediately, and then the damage was already total. So one piece of malware that had wiped out every single one of their 150 domain controllers, basically the entire backbone of how their network functioned, was just gone. They ended up having to replace 4,000 servers and around 45,000 computers. And it took them just 10 days, maybe more than like 10 days to rebuild from scratch. Now, here's the bit I really want you to sit with. So, what do you think? What do you think? How did they survive? I don't know if you have read about this over the internet, but how do you think they survived this? They send people to every single office around the world searching for one clean backup, and just one that hadn't been touched by the attack. And they found it in a remote office. And you know what? Why it was clean? What do you think? Because a power blackout had knocked the server offline by accident, and literally minutes before the malware hit. So yeah, if it can happen to a company that size with all their IT resources and global infrastructure, I don't think I need to finish this sentence, right? The question is never like if something goes wrong, it's whether are you ready for it when it does. Moving on to next slide. cyber sec- like I would say cyber attacks are inevitable. You cannot avoid them, or you cannot opt out of them. And if you ask me, like, Neha, can we have 100% secure system? Honestly speaking, no. Nobody can promise you that, but what you can do is layer your defenses, build your safety nets, and make sure that when something does happen, and I say when, not if like are you prepared for it, right? And that's the thing, right? None of us, like, this doesn't comes with a warning. It doesn't knock on your door and say, hey, just so you know, we are planning to take your systems down this Friday at 2 a.m. Thought you should know. No one comes and knock the door and say this. So it just happens. So infrastructure fails out of nowhere, power goes down like mid shift, attacks happen overnight when no one's around to catch it early. So, and the numbers are honestly kind of alarming. When it comes to cyber attacks that we see today, for example, ransomware attacks, So this is where attackers get into your system, encrypt your data, and basically hold it hostage until you pay a ransom. So when, according to the UAE Cybersecurity Council, UAE went up to over 32 percentage of ransomware attacks in 2024 alone. And that's just one region. And this is happening everywhere. If you see GCC, Southeast Asia, Europe, nowhere it's off the table, right? And these guys don't particularly care if you are a 10-person startup or a 50,000-person enterprise. If there is a gap, they will find it. The attackers finds the vulnerability and ready for a chance to attack. So I know it feels like it's something that happens to other people or a bigger companies, but it really isn't. So when that is in mind, like keeping that in mind, let me ask you three questions. All right. First, I want you to genuinely think about this, and as I ask them, to be honest with yourself, because that's the only way this is going to be useful. So first one is, when was your last backup? Like, do you actually know the date, or is it more like, okay, I think it's automatic, or maybe like, I'm pretty sure someone said that at some point? Because honestly, that second answer is way more common that people like today want to admit it about, and that certainly is already a problem, right? And coming to the next question, have you ever actually tested your recovery? Not assuming it like it would work, but genuinely run a test, simulated something is going wrong, or confirm that, okay, everything came back cleanly. Because most people, I would say, they have backup, but the recovery part, they don't just see it until a cyber attacks or something disruption happens. So most businesses do not find this gap. So that gap is exactly what causes the most damage when things do go wrong. And the third one, how long can your business survive if your systems go down? An hour, or full day, or a half day? Because most businesses downtime isn't just inconvenient, it's expensive. Because the revenue stops, client starts calling you like, why we didn't get the invoice yet, maybe something like that, and every hour it drags on, the cost compounds. So these aren't any trick questions, these are just the questions that separate the companies that get through a crisis from the ones that don't. Moving on to what data is. So here is something that sounds obvious when you say it loud. So but I think it's worth actually to stop for a second and think about what actually data is. What data is right now? Data is something, a raw information that's in stored figures, facts, and records that only becomes meaningful when it's processed or put in a context, right? So data isn't just a files that's sitting on a server somewhere, or it's not just a stuff in a folder that should be kept safe. It's genuinely the something your entire business runs on. Thinking about it like practical way, your daily operations when it comes to workflows, systems, processes, all of that runs on your data, right? Your client relationships, whether it comes to every record that you keep, or every communications that you have, or every commitment you have made, that's all in your data. So your revenue, billing, contracts, your sales pipeline, that depends on your data being there and intact. So, and when it comes to the reputation part, years of trust that clients have built on you, a single breach can put all that at a risk, a serious risk. So when I say data is the lifeblood of a modern business, I mean it quite literally, because without it, you cannot operate. You cannot serve clients, you cannot invoice, you cannot do much of anything. So when your data is risk, I mean, is at risk, I think you, not I think, I'm sure your business is at risk. So it's that direct. And that's the frame I want us to keep in mind for the rest of this webinar. Let's get to it, how important our data is. Coming on to what happens to us, the myths that we all talk about right now, or that we all have heard about. So here comes the fun part, that we all tell ourselves to feel okay about all of this, that because there are a very few common ones, and I want you to gently push it to each of them. The first one would be, we are too small to be targeted. I hear this a lot. So when I have a conversation with different end users or companies, what they say is, the reality is actually the opposite. Small and mid-sized businesses are the most targeted ones. Precisely speaking, because attackers know or think they are less likely to have a robust defenses when it comes to mid or small size businesses, and the size doesn't actually protect you. And the other one I have heard is, we have antivirus, we are covered, we are perfectly all right. Okay. So let me tell you about a company that had a few global security, like full global security operations, and it still didn't help them. So in September 2023, one of the biggest hotel and casino groups in the world, like they have a massive IT team, proper security setup. Let me tell you how this attack happened. So the hackers went on LinkedIn, found a regular employee's profile, called the company's IT help desk, and pretended to be that person and said, "Hey, I have been logged out. Like, can you please reset my password?" So, and the help desk, just as we all have, and as they are doing their job, as they're doing their work, following all normal procedures, they did reset the access. So what I mean to say is, that one call, which took less than 10 minutes, gave them full access to the entire network. So they moved quietly through the systems, escalated their privileges, and eventually deployed a ransomware across the whole organization. There is no software exploit or no technical vulnerability, but just one phone call that caused a huge loss for them. So when we say we have antivirus, we just think about it as an attack that never went near antivirus. This is the attack that went over a phone call. And when you say we have never had a problem, so we must be doing something right. So this company had one of the best security operations out there. It still happened. So what I mean to say is, a clean record or clean track record just means you haven't been in their path. So moving on from the myths that we spoke, what actually hurts is the data loss, data breach, or we can say the business continuity. Yes, the obvious one is data loss, which means files, records, years of work that simply can be recreated if there is no backup. Like, that's the most visible part we have. Then there is a data breach, which is the different kind of damage, which means customer information, financial data, or confidential records getting exposed. And with that, data protection regulations getting like stricter everywhere. Right now, we have compliances, we need to follow them. The legal exposure that follows can be enormous. And then there's downtime. Every minute your systems are offline, let's think about it. The cost is ticking because the productivity stops and your team can't work. So clients are calling and wondering what's going on in that company, and like your reputation is at stake. And some of them won't even wait around, right? But honestly speaking, these things that make all of this worse, the things most businesses only discover after it's happened, and are what, like, we will be talking in the next, going on further, because those are the hidden problems that we don't see, and we have to fix it in advance so we can be safe about it. So now there are these things that don't make the headlines, but we are often like extend the pain. The first one is slow recovery, and this is really important distinction. I'm pretty sure most of them will have a backup. Yes, but how many of you have tested it actually? Because usually people look into the restoration part only when something strikes, where it's accidental deletion or a flood or an attack. Having a backup and being able to restore from it quickly are two completely different things. A lot of businesses find out the hard way that their backup exists, but the restoration process takes 24, maybe 48, or sometimes 72 hours. And during all of that time, you're losing your money. The backup is only half of it, and I would say the recovery speed is other half of it. And comes the tool confusion. A lot of businesses have one platform for backup, another one for security, and another one for monitoring. And when something goes wrong, your IT team has to juggle around across all of them to try putting everything into a pace what's actually happening, or to figure out what's happening they have to look up to different tools. So fragmented tools create gaps, and data that falls into these gaps are often gone, or are often lost. Next, coming on to the vendor support. So that's what really gets people. So picture this, it's 2 a.m. and your systems are down. You call your provider and you get to put in a ticket queue. Nobody answers, and every minute you are on a hold is another minute your business is offline. So these are all things you can protect yourself against, but only if you know that they are coming up right. So if you have a perfect solution about it, we can be prepared for it, right? Talking about the how businesses are actually protecting themselves today, because this is where the real gap tends to be. If one thing is external hard drives. When I talk to small business owners, like I ask, like, "Hi, sir, madam, how do you keep your backup, or do you have a backup for your data?" A lot of them say we have got everything backed up. It's on the external drive that we keep in. And the first thing I ask is, where is the drive? And almost always the answer is maybe on someone's desk, or maybe in the server room, we have kept it safe. So, what I mean to say is, it is the same building that could get flooded or broken into or catch fire. So, I don't think that's not really a backup. It's just a copy of the data, right? Then there is NAS storage, a bit more organized, a bit faster for the recovery purpose, yes, but still it's local. So if the office is compromised and the NAS goes with it, which brings in medium risk, what happens to the backup? And coming to the manual backups, where someone is supposed to run the backup every Friday afternoon, what happens when they're sick, or on if they're on holidays, or if they just forget to do it? It can cause high risk because the consistency isn't there in it. Coming to the classic one, set and forget. Someone configured it once, 2 or 3 years ago. The backup is done. The recovery part, yes, they took it, and it's just been sitting there ever since. Nobody's checked it if it's still running, or nobody's tested whether the restore actually works. And honestly, this one is the most dangerous because it gives you the false sense of security that you have covered when you might not be at all. So it's a critical risk. And looking at this, like, this is genuinely where most of the industry started, and these tools exist even now, but people did use them. But the threats have changed, and how we think about backup also need to be changed, like change with them too. Coming to the backup has evolved. Yes, backups has indeed evolved. So let's look at where backup has come from and where it's heading now. Because understanding this makes it a lot easier to see why the approach matters, right? So local storage, when you think about it, we have NAS drives, external drives, on-prem servers. This is the original approach that we take, and it's not useless, or but it's actually fast for everyday recovery. But the fundamental problem is that if your physical location is compromised in any way, whether it's ransomware, or whether it's flood, whether it's fire, or the theft, your backup goes down with everything else. It's a single point of failure. So it's a good starting point, but then it's not sufficient on its own. Coming to the cloud backup, it's a big big step forward. Yes, it's offsite and it's scalable, it's accessible from anywhere you see. But here's the thing, cloud alone isn't a complete strategy. Which cloud, how it is secured, and importantly, how long does an actual full restore take place? So, without a proper architecture behind it, a recovery from a cloud can be slightly slow and or maybe incomplete. So it's a transition approach, which is powerful, but it needs a structure or a strategy to maintain. Coming to the best part, that's hybrid. Like combining the local speed with cloud resilience, this is where the smartest businesses are landing on now. The way I think about it is like local storage is your safety net for the everyday stuff, like quick restore, minimal disruption. Cloud is your parachute for the big ones, the ransomware hit, the total site failure, or the disaster that takes everything physical down with it. So I would say hybrid can combine the local speed along with the cloud resilience. Together, they cover each other's gap and sounds good, right? So by saying this, let's look at a practical framework that we could think about rather than thinking about backup as a single thing you do once. I want to walk you through thinking about it as a layered strategy. So before, because the real resilience comes from multiple levels of protection working together so that if one fails, the others are still holding up. So layer one is multiple copies. This is the like most basic principle. Don't rely on a single backup because one copy is one point of failure. When you have multiple copies, you have options to choose, right? Next comes the layer two, which is multi-platform storage. Keep copies across different environments, maybe local, NAS, cloud. Each type has different vulnerabilities. So spreading across platforms means no single failure event can take everything out at once. So that's a second layer you can build on. Coming to the third layer, it can be geographic separations. What if the entire site goes down? Maybe it's a fire or a flood or a major power failure. If all your copies are in the same building, geography is working against you. So at least one copy needs to be somewhere physically separate. So if you have one in the UAE, maybe we can keep it in Abu Dhabi. Like having a separate like having a separate geographic separations would be good for the backup. Layer 4 comes the really important one that's in today's threat environment is isolated protection. An offline or immutable backup is one that can't be modified or encrypted after it's been written. So even if a ransomware gets deep into your network, it literally cannot touch that copy. So it's untouchable by design as a default. Coming to the next layer, which is layer 5, is verified recovery. Honestly, this is where a lot of organizations fall apart. Like testing your backup isn't glamorous, but I must say it's everything. A backup you have never tested is a backup you can't actually trust on. So the only copy that matters is the one you have confirmed it like as recent as possible in a real test and that you can actually restore from. So verifying your recovery is a most important one when it comes to the backup. So put all of these 5 layers together and you're not just storing data, you're actually putting it all together. You're building the kind of resilience that means you can come back from almost anything that happens to you. So I'm sure by now we have covered quite a few perspectives on importance of data, and I may have raised a lot of questions along the way. But as we move on to the next section of our webinar, I'm pretty much confident that you will start finding your clear answers to all those questions. So whether it's a data loss or whether it's a data breaches, recovery time or backups, everything can be addressed through a single unified solutions. And to walk you through that in detail, I would like to hand over to my colleague Revathy and passing over to Revathy. Thank you for your time and attention.
When we look at the modern business needs today, it's very clear that we don't just need backup, right? Like we need something far more complete. So something which means it protects it, secures it, and ensure we can recover it quickly when it matters the most. So this is exactly where Acronis comes into the picture. Basically, Acronis is not just a backup tool, but as a complete end-to-end protection platform. So what does Acronis do? It's a great question, right? And this is really the heart of what we are covering today. Acronis brings everything together into a unified platform. It have a backup, cybersecurity, disaster recovery, RMM, PSA, and multiple features is available. But it's all in one place, which means we have a one agent, one console, and one bill, which means it's a unified console we have. So instead of juggling multiple tools, which means logging into different dashboards and trying to connect the dots between systems, you can see, manage, and protect everything from a single intuitive interface, which means consolidating those tools not only saves time, it reduces like errors, eliminating blind spot, and make your entire process simpler and more efficient. Now we are talking about the storage part because storage part is much important, right? Because every business have a different needs, different infrastructure, different risk profile, right? But with Acronis, you get to choose how you want to protect your data. We have a three main options is available. Backup to the locally, which means you can take in the backup to the NAS or local on-premise storage. So what is the main advantage of this? This gives you fast access and full control. And second one is a cloud. The main advantage of the cloud is it gives a better accessibility and offsite protection against the physical disasters. And also, one of the main points is Acronis support private cloud like AWS, Azure, and Wasabi, etc. This is your choice. And most importantly, we have another third option is hybrid approach. And today, this is the preferred choice of most of the business. Why? Because it gives the best for both worlds, speed for recovery and security for your data. So, next we are coming to the another part. This is the main important parts available in the Acronis. It's but just I'm explaining that one is the encryption, another one is the immutable storage. All the backups in Acronis are protected with AES-256 encryption. So your data is secured in transit and at rest. Also, it's a zero exposure at any stages. And one of the most powerful features is available in the Acronis is immutable storage. You know, which means once the backup is written, it cannot be modified, overwritten, or deleted. Not even by the ransomware or not even by the malicious insider. So your backup is locked and protected and always recoverable format. So this is the main two security features available in the Acronis in the backup side. And another part is, but more than backup, what really matters is it's a recovery, right? Because when a real incidents happen, nobody asks, right? Do you have a backup? The real question is how fast can we recover and get back to the business, right? Anybody have think about that? If a critical system went to the down right now, how long would it take your team to fully recover? It's minutes, hours, or days. Just think about that. With Acronis, recovery time object is only the under 15 minutes, and the recovery point object is under the 1 hour. And we have the service continuity uptime is 99.9%. Whether we have a multiple option for the recovery. You need to restore as a single file like a folder or file level, or if you want to recover as an Enter server, it's possible. Enter workstation also possible. As a virtual machine also possible. So you can do it quickly with a minimal manual effort. You know, it's a less downtime, less revenue loss, and true business continuity. And beyond the everyday backup, I mean everyday recovery, Acronis also provide full disaster capability, which means you can run anything, any disasters happen on your own infrastructure. You can easily spin up your server or machines from the Acronis cloud. I'm just explain here how it works in a real world scenario. Suppose the moment a failure occurs, whether it's a server crash or ransomware attack, or even a complete site outage, the first step is instant failover to the Acronis cloud, ensuring there is no delay in response. From there, your system are immediately brought online directly from the backup. So there is no need to wait for a full restoration process. But behind the scenes, automated recovery organization is available. It takes over the handling the entire failover process with the minimal manual intervention. Which means, so essentially, instead of experiencing downtime, you can instantly spin up your workloads in the Acronis cloud, and your team continues operating with the minimal manual disruption. So this is also the one of the main feature available in the Acronis. And next part is one more critical aspect we can't overlook, right? It's an active security part. Because today I'm just explaining, because today if even your backup data is a target, right, from the attacker side. So attackers specifically go after backup system because they know if they destroy your backup, you have no choice but to pay the ransom, right? And have you checked whether your current backups are protected from the ransomware? Just check now. Acronis addresses this with AI-powered ransomware protection that actively detect and block suspicious activity in real time. Which means, so your backup don't just exist; they're actively defended from the Acronis end. And next part, I'm just explaining some very. This is one of the main part in the Acronis, which means it's an IT management perspective part, because everything in Acronis is centralized format. There is no need to switch between a multiple tools or juggle different dashboards. Everything like backup status, security alerts, or recovery jobs, or like a cyberfit score, all everything can be monitored and managed from a single control panel. So this is a unified platform. Also, this is a game changer for IT teams, especially for organization with the limited technical resources. You don't need a team of specialists. One person can manage it all. So Acronis also have a unified platform. Now, if we connect all of this back to everything we discussed earlier, all those challenges like we talked about, data loss, downtime, slow recovery, managing too many tools, ransomware threats, etc. Acronis is designed to address exactly those problems. Not with a patchwork of different products, but it's one integrated intelligent platform we have. One platform and total protection. So let me leave you one final thought to you. If something unexpected happened tomorrow, like a cyber attack, hardware failure, or a disaster, are you confident that a business could recover quickly and continue without major impact if there is even small doubt? Just think about it. Then now is the right time to rethink your data protection strategy.